Hi friends, hope you are doing well. I am Dr. Ganguly. Welcome to my channel. So today I'm going to give you a list of documents which you are going to need if you are applying for the Schengen visa. And many students, researchers, postdocs, professors, even tourists, when they plan to go to any European country, then they generally require the Schengen visa. So this is one of the popular and sought after visas. So I'm going to give you a list of documents here. Now, in fact, if you are applying to any specific country, you will find that there is a checklist in the embassy or consulate of that documents you need to get. So of course you should follow that checklist very closely, but the documents I'm telling you is kind of a superset of that checklist. So even before you have planned your journey, you should think about getting some of these documents, or you should think about if you will have these documents, because there is no point putting in a paper for a conference or planning to go to Schengen region if you feel that you are not going to be able to get the visa. Because to remember, once they take the visa fee, if they reject the visa, then your visa fee is essentially lost, and a lot of the other things I'm going to mention, such as the travel insurance, etc., may also be lost as money as far as you are concerned. The other thing to keep in mind is that when you apply for the Schengen visa, each person in your family has to apply for a visa. So maybe you are somebody who is going to a conference in Europe, you want to take your wife or child, you should apply for Schengen visa for each person here, and each person will have to write a cover letter, fill the application form, and do all the things. You can get the appointment at the same time, but you will have to treat each person as a separate entity, and then you have to give their passports and so on. So let's look at these documents. Of course, we start with number one, which is a valid passport, and valid here means that the passport should of course not be expired. It should be valid for a period of at least 3 months. Some embassies in fact require it to be valid for 6 months. I think Greece is one of such countries. So in general, it's always a good idea to have a passport which is valid for 6 months. In case there is any problem in your schedule, you will not have any problem later on. Now, another thing to remember is that you should have 2 blank pages in the passport, and this actually I came to learn the hard way once. When I had gone for a particular visa, I had all the documents, but I had only 1 blank page. So unfortunately the consulate sent me back, and I in fact could not go on that particular trip. So this is something you need to keep in mind also. If your passport is having few blank pages left, then try to get a new passport. If you are somebody who travels frequently, try to get one of the thicker passports if you can. Now the next thing you need to get is of course passport size pictures or photographs. Now most photographing outfits in your city are going to provide you with Schengen visa pictures, so you can get them from here. If you do not get them, you can get them at the consulate or someplace outside the consulate. They generally have some outfits there which get pictures, but these guys are typically going to charge a lot of money. So do get this done by some professional photographer or their shop. Now you typically need 2 pictures for the visa, but you can take more pictures. Nothing is going to be a problem if you have more than necessary. Now the number 3 thing has to do with your previous passport, and this is something which is very important. If you have a previous passport, it's a good idea to attach it to your current passport, because do remember that all the visas you have obtained previously also helps in this particular visa here. So if you are somebody who has traveled to some other country, maybe to US, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, maybe to Thailand, maybe Singapore, Japan, China, any other country, it's going to be useful to the particular staff concerned about giving you the Schengen visa. So do remember your previous passport and the fact that visas in that passport do help there. So if you are somebody who has a long-term plan to apply for a Schengen visa, do start out with some nearby countries and then expand from there on. Now the next thing has to do with the visa application form, and of course this is the most important document or one of the most important document, and you need to fill this form very carefully. All the information here should be correct, and of course they are going to verify the veracity of this information. The next point is a cover letter, and this is a document where you tell them exactly where you are going, why you are going, what is the purpose of your visit, what is your name, what is your contact location, your email, your phone number, and so on. And also you can mention any travel plans. If you are traveling as a family, you can mention that fact also. You can give the names and the details about all the people who are going in this particular journey. Now you should of course show that you have a lot of interest in going to this particular country and not only attending a conference or a business meeting, but also of traveling to that country. That's something which they expect in the Schengen visa region. Now the next thing is the letter from the employers or wherever you work. Now in case you work at a university, this letter should tell exactly what work you do, what is your rank, what is your position, if you are a student doing PhD, if you are a professor, if you are a researcher, and so on. So your job, your rank, your position, salary should all be laid out. It should be mentioned that you have been given leave from the particular university to attend this conference or to go to this region, and that you will join back the university or the company once you come back. Now this is very important that the letter should talk about your going and your coming back, because this makes the people feel that you are a legitimate candidate. You are not going on a one-way trip here. Now if you are in a university, typically these kind of letters are given by the registrars of the university or the directors of the university, and they have to be routed through the department chairperson. So do keep that thing in mind. Now the next thing has to do with travel insurance, and travel insurance is very important and in fact compulsory for the Schengen region. So typically they ask you for some amount like 30,000 euro at this point. So do check the exact details in the consulate web page, and of course you have to buy this travel requirement, and do remember that if you do not get the visa, you may actually lose this money. So I have made a separate video on visitor insurance. I'm going to give a link to that in the end screen. Now the next thing is the flight reservation, and the flight reservation should exactly say when you are going, when you are coming back. So it should be a return ticket, it should not be a one-way ticket. And you can try to get some kind of flight reservation from various people out there. Sometimes you can buy a refundable ticket, and maybe if you do not get visa, you can get the money back. Do not buy non-refundable tickets because you do not know about the final outcome in the visa process, because what happens with many of these visa situations, especially the Schengen visa, is that there is a pretty high rate of rejection, and so you do not want to lose this particular money here. So there are many situations where you may be able to do a booking for a flight ticket without paying the entire amount, and you can try to do that, and when later your visa is confirmed, you can pay the remaining amount required. Now the next thing is about your travel plan, and this of course includes all the plan you have about the particular place you are visiting. Now in case you are going to a city and just presenting a paper at a conference and coming back, maybe you are going to Paris, maybe you are going to Munich, or maybe you are going to Barcelona, then of course it's very clear cut. But in case you are somebody who is planning to visit 2 or 3 cities or 2 or 3 different countries, you need to give your plan here. You need to give the various bus journeys you have booked, or if you have bought a Eurail pass ticket, you need to give that flight tickets, maybe going from Munich to Paris or from Paris to Barcelona. All these tickets should also be given here. Now the next thing is to do with the hotel booking or wherever you are going to stay. Now as far as this booking is concerned, it's very important to make this booking very properly, and the date should be such that you have a place to sleep every night of your trip. So they are going to certainly check that from the moment you land in the European city to the moment you leave, you have some place to stay there, because they do not want you to just land there and then try to figure out as to where you are going to stay. That makes your case seem to be somewhat of a shady case, so do keep that in mind. Now the next thing has to do with your pay slip, and you have to essentially give the printout of your salary for the last 3 months. And this could be something which is generated on the computer, it could be something which is signed. Of course everything should be signed by you in case you are somebody who cannot get it signed by somebody else. So again, this is something which is very important, because your pay slip should reflect that you are an employee of some job or of some company, and also that you are able to pay for your visit to that Schengen country. So your pay should be commensurate with the expenses you are trying to get. Now that brings us next to the bank statement, and this bank statement should be something which is signed by the bank. Again, you need to give information about the last 3 months. This should be in A4 paper. It should give the statement of your funds, and it should be such that the numbers coming here are more or less consistent. So it should not be that you have made a very large deposit in the previous month and then maybe you are going to withdraw it. So do keep in mind that at least 3 months before your trip, keep a reasonably large amount of money in your bank account. Now, sometime I used to add my credit card copies and some information here, at least one side. Do not add both sides because the back side may contain information about the CVC and some things such as expiry date and so on, but they may know that you also have a credit card to help you fund your particular trip. Now, many a time students do not have money, so what they can do is that they can show some particular grant they have obtained from the university, and that the letter for this grant can be put in as the support case here. So that could be the case if your trip is being sponsored by the university or by some foundation from which you have obtained some grants. So that brings us to the next question, and that is the last 2-year tax form. And this is something which is very important. If you are somebody who is paying taxes, you come across as a more responsible person. Now, maybe if you are a student, you are not yet paying taxes, that may be okay if you have got some different form of support. But certainly, if you are a faculty member or if you are a tourist, you should provide the last 2 years tax form. And of course, your salary should be substantial. Your salary should be something which is also showing up in your bank statement. So that's something which they are going to check. So make sure that your salary corresponds to whatever taxes you are paying. And this is something which is important because I know some people who have a lot of wealth but do not pay taxes, and sometimes they do not get visas because what happens is that they are not able to show income. So there are people who may own a lot of land, who may own a lot of property, who may own a lot of gold, but none of this is going to be very useful to you if you are going to apply for the Schengen visa, because you actually have to show money in the bank and you have to show that you have paid taxes and you have to show your income in terms of the tax forms. Now, the next thing you need is a letter from the sponsor, and there are some cases where somebody may be sponsoring your visit. Maybe it's a relative you have in that country, maybe it's your brother, maybe it's your cousin, or maybe it's your friend, so they can write a letter for you here. Maybe there is some foundation, there is some university, there is some conference which is sponsoring your visit. So again, you need to give the letter from this particular foundation here. All these letters become very useful for you in terms of getting the visa. Now, of course, one of the things the people try to do at the consulates is that they try to figure out from all this information that you are a legitimate case, and so the more letters you have from different people with good letterheads, with good signatures and with good background, the more you look like a legitimate person. Now, the next thing you need is the passport copy, and this is something which they always want. So it's a good idea to make a copy by yourself. You may be able to make it at the consulate, but there the charges may be much more and you may have to run around the consulate to get that particular copy done. The next thing is that if you are a student, you can take a student identity card copy with you. I would say even if you are a faculty member or you are a person working in a company, if you have an ID card, the copy of that is going to be useful to put in here. Now, the next thing is a letter from college, and this is something which is required in case of any student or any faculty member, that they should of course get the permission letter from their college that they are being permitted to go to this particular trip, to this particular conference, and that they are going to come back. They are a bona fide student or a bona fide faculty or scientist in that particular university. Now, in case of UG students or people doing bachelor's degree who are very young, who do not have a lot of documentation, they may actually need to give a letter from their parents, and they may also need to provide passport copies of their parents. So this becomes a somewhat complicated case, so do look into that in more detail. There may be some more information about this. Now, this has been coming up lately because there are many students, especially summer interns and so on, who think about going and maybe doing an internship abroad, maybe presenting a paper in a foreign conference, and they need to acquire the Schengen visa and they do not have much financial strength or documentation at that point. Now, In case you have been refused a Schengen visa in the past, what may be required is that you need to give a copy of refusal of that particular Schengen visa over the last 2 years. So every now and then this can happen to you, and you can just put in the details or the copy for this particular refusal. I think it is required in many cases. Finally, the most important thing is that you have to give the fees. You have to pay the fees for the Schengen visa, and then you have to attach the receipt of the fact that you have paid the fees. Now, when you take all these things to the consulate, the people that are going to help you, there is going to be some VFS staff in front. They are going to help you collate all these documents together. There is a certain specific pattern in which these documents need to be put together, and they are going to help you do that, and then they are simply going to send it to the consulate concerned. Now, do remember that as far as the VFS people and the people who collect the visa are concerned, they are simply like couriers or people who collate and do the things necessary for the consulate. They do not actually make the decisions involved. So they are simply going to make sure that you have done all the things. So for example, once I had gone to the French consulate for a visa and I had taken my bank statements, but they were not signed by the bank manager. So I had to go back and get these things signed by the bank manager. So there are some few details like that which they are very concerned about. So again, if there is any basic lacuna in your document, they are going to tell you that, and then they are going to send it all to the consulate, and those guys are going to make a decision based on whatever documents they have given you, and maybe they are going to do further biometrics for you. Of course, that is necessary, and then you may be subjected to a lot of questions, and then you may finally get the visa. So this was my video about how to get the Schengen visa, what are the documents. So you can start preparing for the Schengen trip and start collecting all these different documents. If you are somebody who has not filed his tax returns, maybe you can think about starting to file your tax returns if you plan to travel in the European destinations.